you? I saw you chasing Bart's ambulance.
Hutz is the name, Mr. Simpson. Lionel Hutz, attorney at law. Here's my card. It turns into a sponge when you put it in water.
Ooh, classy.
People are always making fun of personal injury attorneys, calling us a bunch of ambulance chasers or making us look like a bunch of schmucks who advertise on TV, doing a bunch of stupid stunts to try to get clients. But wait till you get hurt in a car accident on your own. Or let's say someone you love has been injured as a result of medical malpractice, or somebody you know has been bitten by a dog and it wasn't their fault. Then of course you want to get the best personal injury attorney you can find. When you think about what makes a good personal injury attorney, or what's the most important thing if you are a personal injury attorney, you might think, well, you gotta have great courtroom presence and have excellent trial skills so that you can win the cases in front of the jury. Well, that's actually not the case, because a lot of people don't realize that the vast majority of personal injury cases, if they have merit, they're gonna settle before trial. So in my experience, the most important thing if you're a personal injury attorney is to know what's a good case. The pre-screening of your clients is the most important thing. Another attorney who has been sort of like a mentor to me told me that no case is ever as good as the day that it looks when it first comes in through the door. And that's so true. When you first meet with a client for personal injury cases, you need to find out all of the most important facts, which is, when did the incident occur? Is there any insurance involved? Were there any witnesses? Do you have a police report, if applicable? Do you have your medical records? Are you still treating for your injuries? You have to gather up all of the evidence as much as you can to see if the case is One of the best and most profitable personal injury cases I did was probably about 13, 14 years ago, when I represented an elderly lady who had been not actually hit by a car, but she had been walking across the street, a pretty busy road in Raleigh, and a car almost hit her. So the car just stopped right at her body, and she instinctively stuck out her hands to try to shield the car away from hitting her, and she fell to the ground, and she ended up having to go to the hospital. But luckily, she didn't even have any fractures or anything. She needed a little bit of medical care and some follow-up, but by and large, she was okay, or back to the same level of health that she was before by the time she saw me. And she was referred to me through another personal injury client who lived in the same senior citizens apartment complex where she lived. So it turned out to be a really nice case because, number one, the client was an extremely nice older lady who didn't cause me any trouble. That's a hard thing to deal with when you're a personal injury attorney, especially if you don't have like an army of legal assistants and staff to shield the attorney away from all the demands of the clients. Because a lot of the personal injury firms, they have to be profitable by doing high volume. That means advertising on TV, billboard ads. It used to be yellow page ads, now it's internet ads. You have to get like a big swarm of clients to come in, and then hopefully some fraction of those potential clients will turn out to be good, lucrative cases. But meanwhile, you also have hundreds or even thousands of clients that are at different stages of their cases. And some of them are going to be high maintenance, where they want to call you almost every day and keep complaining about their medical problems or their financial problems and how they're not getting any money so far from their case. And that's where it's important to have the office staff that can help deal with that. So in that nice case where I was able to help the lady get a very large settlement, it was a great feeling all around, because I knew that my client was going to be okay, and she was happy with my services. And to tell you the truth, I was very surprised that we were able to get such a good payout on that case. I can't even remember if we had filed a lawsuit already or not, But in some of my other harder cases, we definitely had to file a lawsuit before the insurance company would take us seriously and offer a good settlement for the client's case. On the other hand, the last personal injury auto accident case that I did, which I would say was about 10 or 11 years ago, that turned out to be not too profitable and was probably the reason why I decided, okay, I'm through with this. I'm a solo practitioner. I can't deal with doing personal injury. I'm going to tailor my practice down to just a couple of practice areas. But in that case, the client was another elderly person, but this person was high maintenance. He was very nice in person, but he lived not too far away from my office, which was bad because there would be so many times that I would be out of the office for lunch or something. I'd come back and there he would be sitting in the waiting room waiting to talk to me just because he felt lonely. He wanted to know what's going on with his case. He just wanted a pep talk. And you still have to be obviously nice and professional with all of your clients, but there are going to be clients that will just sap away all your time and energy if you let them. So you have to place these ground rules with your clients early on. You know, for example, do not take phone calls late at night or on weekends. And especially with personal injury clients, they're not paying you by the hour. Typically, they have signed a representation agreement with you where you would get a percentage of whatever proceeds you're able to get on their case. So because of this kind of setup, the client has no disincentive to not bug you over every little thing. And I didn't have much office staff. I mean, to this day, I just have one person that helps me remotely, mostly remotely, especially now due to COVID-19. But with these kinds of clients that are constantly calling and emailing you when nothing's going on with the case, you just have to set these ground rules and give them a timetable. Let them know, okay, well, right now nothing is going to happen with your case because you are still seeking medical treatment. Until you're done and your doctor says you're as good as you're ever going to be, or give some sort of prognosis as to, you know, how disabled you might be, if there's going to be any scarring, any long-lasting effects. If you're not going to be able to go back to work at your previous job, you know, until we have these defined time periods in your healing process, nothing is going to happen on your case. So that's why it's important first time you meet with the clients, as well as most likely, you know, anytime the person continues calling and complaining and acting as if you haven't been doing anything on their behalf, to tell them, okay, well, remember this timeline I told you. First step is this, second step is that. Third step, this, you know, we're waiting on your medical records. Once we get the medical records or the police report or whatever, you know, then we will do this. Sometimes it's good to give your clients some extra homework to do, like, hey, you know, can you request this, or can you get that, or can you develop your photos, or whatever. I mean, yeah, you just gotta set those basic parameters. Otherwise, certain clients, especially the ones that have too much time on their hands, they will run all with their much court action when I did these personal injury cases. No, not really. I mean, like I said, a lot of these cases, if they have merit and there's insurance involved, then typically these cases will settle either with the insurance carrier, or after you file a lawsuit, then you most likely will have to mediate, at least where I practice. All the cases have to go through mediation before you have a trial anyway. So the vast majority of the good cases will settle either before you file the lawsuit or at mediation before trial. So that's why I never had to actually go to trial for a personal injury case. Well, actually, come to think of it, there was one case that I did basically because I felt sorry for the person. It was a poor Chinese lady who worked as a waitress at a Chinese buffet restaurant, and she had been injured in an auto accident. This was at my old firm, so that was probably like about 15 years ago or something, but all I remember is getting egg on my face and losing at small claims court. I went with my client to go do the case. The insurance company for the at-fault driver had already denied the claim. So we went there, and I think we had to get an interpreter. Now I can't even remember. But basically the defense attorney, who was an excellent African-American woman attorney who, she did some great lawyering for the insurance company, but she was asking my client, well, did you look to the left or did you look over before you went through the green light? And my client said, no, because the light turned green, so I went ahead and drove on through. Well, that's how we lost the case, because there's still that obligation when you're driving. Even though you have the right of way, you got the green light, you can't just press the gas pedal and speed on through that intersection. You still have the obligation to look, make sure there's nobody coming towards you. So anyway, that was a bit of a bummer, but it wasn't as if I or my boss had really invested a lot of money into the case, so that's a good thing. But it was a good lesson learned there, that there are going to be occasionally you find cases where it seems like your client should win or you feel sorry for the person. Well, that's kind of like one of the worst reasons to take on a case, is because you feel sorry for the person. So a lot of being a personal injury attorney is knowing how to pick the right cases, which means looking over a lot of medical records and understanding what the law is, talking to witnesses, making sure you gather up all the evidence. And in a lot of the bigger personal injury firms, it is usually up to a legal assistant or paralegal to assemble all of the documents, the medical records, the documentation of lost wages, photographs, into a demand package that is then sent to the insurance company to try to settle the case before even having to file a lawsuit. And for smaller cases, then a lot of times if you do have a good case, then you will end up settling instead of having to even file a lawsuit. So it gets back down to the issue of, why did I stop practicing personal injury law? Well, it is actually a very male-dominated field. I used to be active with this trial lawyers group in North Carolina, where we had a personal injury section, and it seemed like probably about 90% of the people who were active in that group or on the listservs were men. But I mainly felt that doing personal injury law was not something that's well suited for a solo practitioner like myself, because you basically have to front all the costs for your client's case before there's any sort of payout, if there is a payout in the end. And sometimes, unfortunately, you do end up representing people who are exaggerating their problems or their medical issues, or are not totally honest with you about their health issues or lost wages, things like that. There have been times that I had to tell people that, look, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to represent you anymore because of some problems with their case. So it's hard as a solo practitioner to be able to generate a lot of income, especially if every month you have this overhead that you have to pay, but yet you might have a handful of cases where there's no idea when you're going to finally get a payout on that case. It could be a great payout, but not until next year. So it's just too unpredictable, at least in my opinion, to do a personal injury practice as a solo practitioner. Sure, there might be some solo practitioners who have a big team of paralegals to deal with all of the smaller tasks that need to be done, especially hand-holding the clients or just requesting all of the records and typing up form demand letters, things like that. But I felt like I was probably spreading myself a little too thin, and I didn't like the financial uncertainty of potentially having to pay thousands of dollars to, for example, take depositions of my clients' medical providers, or pay for depositions. Everything adds up, and if you're not working for a bigger firm that has a quote war chest of a lot of money to help front the costs on these personal injury cases, then it's not as financially feasible to do that. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be a personal injury attorney. It does take some good trial lawyering skills too, ultimately, because you have to be willing to take cases to trial. You don't want to become that attorney that the insurance adjusters all know that you never take anything to trial, or you have no trial experience. But on the other hand, there are other skills that you have to work on to be a good personal injury attorney, such as being able to deal with the clients, to have that empathy and the patience to work with them and potentially with their families, and also the financial ability to front the costs. If you all have any other questions or would like to hear about other areas of law, I am thinking about getting some of my attorney friends to also do some interviews so that it's not just always me telling my own perspective based on my own experience practicing the law. So thanks for watching today. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment.